Hi, this is Jeff Pospisil, the 10-Minute Treasurer with practical advice for improving your church's financial future. So in this video, we're going to talk about how your church can apply for the PPP loan forgiveness. That's the Paycheck Protection Program loan. About half of my churches receive this loan in the Dakotas UMC. And we were waiting and we were kind of nervous about what was forgiveness going to look like. For a while, I was wondering, okay, we applied with the bank, but how is forgiveness going to come? Is that going to come through the Small Business Administration? Good news is that you will apply for forgiveness in probably about the same way you applied for the loan, is through your bank. So that is great news because I like working with my bank a whole lot more than I like working with the government agency. So why don't we go ahead and get right into it? Stuff you will need. You're going to need pretty much the same stuff you needed when you first applied for it, plus all your information over the last 8 weeks. So you're going to need your original PPP loan application and supporting materials. That's just going to help. You're going to need your loan agreement paperwork. That's going to have your lender number on it and your loan number on it. You're going to need your 8-week records. So all the expenses that you incurred over that 8-week period of the loan, that's what you also need. And then you're going to probably need some historical stuff to get an idea of if you meet the certain requirements on FTE as well as wages. So let's just start off. I'm going to use a fictional church of Third United Methodist Church in Bowdle, and I just made up a loan number. I made up a EIN. I made up a lender number. I plugged in the amount 17,750, and I used good guesses on that. So 17,750 that they received. That's when it hit their bank on April 21st. And they had 3 employees at the time of the loan, and they still have 3 employees at the time that they are applying for forgiveness. Uh, then later down in the application, the next section, I probably should have checked off twice a month. Most of our churches pay on the 15th and then at the end of the month. So that would probably be something too. For the covered period, I used April 21st and then I counted out 8 weeks, 56 days, and I got June 15th. So April 21st through June 15th. And that works for me because if I was paying twice a month, that would cover 4 payrolls. But if for some reason, the timing's just a little bit off. So if I would have received the money on the 20th, for example, and then through June 14th, I would only get 3 payrolls in there. There's this alternative payroll covered period, and that's so you can align this 8-week period so you can cover all your payroll expenses. So that is good news. Whatever you do, do not check that $2 million box. Otherwise, I think you're going to probably have the Fed visiting with you. All right, you're going to have to skip all the way down near the bottom. There is the original application, then there's a Schedule A, and then there's a Worksheet A. And it feels like the IRS kind of helped the SBA design this by the instructions and everything. So you're going to want to list your employees, John, Lena, and Oli. And Lena happens to be the secretary, John is the pastor, and Oli is the custodian. And then you could put an employee identifier if you want. But then there's the cash compensation, which is your gross salary and wages. So that's before any withholdings for taxes or insurance or pension. So that's the gross salary and wages over the 8-week period, over the covered period. And so that's 8,000 for John, 1,000 for Lena, and 500 for Oli. Interesting thing, since Oli's the custodian, we ended up cutting his time in half. He's normally a quarter-time employee, and we cut his time in half. And so he got paid half of what he normally would have been paid. So then you go to average FTE. So one FTE is 40 or more hours. If you are less than one, some banks will let you put 0.5, and that might be advantageous for your situation to put 0.5. No matter if they're 3/4 time or quarter time, you put 0.5. But some of them, they'll have you do the math. And so Lena normally puts in 10 hours per week. And so you just take 10 divided by 40 and you round to the nearest tenth. So we ended up having to round to 0.3. Oli ended up putting in 5 hours per week, so that ends up rounding to 0.1. And then there's this last column, the salary hourly wage reduction. And basically they're asking how much below 75% of their normal pay did you pay these people? And so normally John would have got paid 8,000 and he did get paid 8,000. So he actually got paid 100%. Lena also at 100%. Oli though, he would have normally received $1,000. And so 75% of 1,000 is 750. And so they're asking how much under 750 did you pay Oli? And we paid him $250 less because we paid him 500. So then if you go to their little worksheet, their help, they kind of walk you through the math. It is helpful to walk through them. Basically, we already did the math ahead of time. They ask you for the average annual salary. Here's what I did. I put what would I have normally paid them for a 8-week period, and I normally or what did I pay him, and then what would I have normally have paid Oli, and it was just easier than doing their kind of math. Maybe they'll force you to do that, but here's what I did it this way because it was easier for me. So you get down to it, and step 2. Well, let's just go step 1. We know we paid him half of what we normally would have. Step 2, they're testing to say, okay, even though you did reduce Oli to less than 75% by June 30th, are you planning on bringing him back up to his regular amount? And we're not. We're planning on bringing Oli up to 8 hours per week. We don't quite have as much because we don't have as much work because people aren't meeting as much in the church building. So that's why I put that. So we're not planning on bringing him all the way up. So we don't meet that safe harbor provision there. So would it be better for us to just pay him the extra $200? Maybe. But anyway, you get to finally the math that we talked about in the very beginning, and it's basically, here it is. It's what 75% of his regular pay is 1,000, or of 1,000 is 750, and then subtract from 750 what we did pay him, which is 500, and that gives us 250. It's kind of similar math for the FTE thing. So what we calculated out was that from February 15th to April 26th, we had 1.4 for our employees. We normally at 1.6, and even as of June 30th, we're not planning on bringing Oli all the way up, so we're at 1.5. And so we still don't meet the safe harbor provision here either. If we were planning on, even if we're planning on paying Oli at a lesser rate, but bringing him up to full 10 hours, that might be a better idea than not meeting the safe harbor thing. So I'm giving you ideas just in case you got time to make some corrections if you want now to bring people back up so you get your maximized forgiveness. So we go ahead and finish this out. That salary and wage reduction, we put in 250. We total everything up. Box 1, 9,500 cash compensation, 1.4 FTE, 250 is our reduction. So now you go to the middle section, which is Schedule A. Again, here's the same numbers we just calculated, 9,500, 1.4, and 250. The part I kind of skipped over is those employees that make over $100,000 a year. I assumed this probably affects next to nobody, at least in the church world. So I put zeros there. So the next section is the non-cash compensation payroll costs. That's an easy one to say. But basically they're asking what'd you pay for the pension and health insurance for your employees. So for pastors, this is your pension direct bill, your Health Flex direct bill for 2 months. So line 6 is your Health Flex direct bill. This does not include any salary withholding. So this is not the pastor's share. Line 7 is your pension direct bill. Again, not the pastor's contribution. This is just the church's piece. And then line 8 is probably 0, but this is not tax withholding. This would be like your unemployment taxes. So if you pay into unemployment, which practically none of our churches do. And the other one was compensation to owners. And I knew I had some churches that were including their apportionments on this, and I didn't know if that's where you'd put that, but I thought that was kind of a, if you included your apportionments in your calculation for the PPP loan, maybe this is where I would include it. That's my best guess. But then you get down and you sum everything up and we get 13,778 for our payroll costs. And then there's that FTE reduction calculation. So average FTE. They give you 2 places to check this, and either way, we have 2 periods, either one from 2019 or one from 2020 before the crisis, and ours was 1.6, and then our total average FTE from the covered period, so the 8-week period is 1.4. And that means when you divide those out, we have a FTE reduction quotient of 0.87. Again, if we would have met that safe harbor provision, where by June 30th we were planning on bringing Oli back up to quarter time, we could have put 1 here, and that would be significant. So, but instead I left it at 0.87 just so we'd have. So now we finally made it back to the application, which is near the top. And so you plug in your payroll expenses, which is that 13,778. If you have any mortgage interest on your church building, so your church building or parsonage, as well as any rent or lease payments on your church building or parsonages, and then utilities, which for sure you'll have on your church building or parsonage. And I say this too, another thing to keep in mind, if you buy propane, you might as well buy it during that covered period. But the other thing is too, let's just say it says either paid or incurred. So let's just say you did buy propane, but they were slow at billing you. You bought it for me on June 10th, but they didn't bill me until the 16th, so I really didn't get it paid till the 20th or something like that. But I incurred it on the 10th. So I would be able to include that. That is the time I owed it, is when I received it. So either way, I put down 3,500 was a good guess for what my utilities would be. So then you go to your adjustments, and I have 250 was the amount that we paid Oli under the 75% of his normal pay. And so then you have to add these things up. So take your lines 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's your payroll costs, your utilities, and then subtract that 250, and that gives us 17,028. And then you have your FTE reduction quotient, which is 0.87. So that's because we didn't bring Oli back up to quarter time. So now after after a worksheet and a schedule and getting through this form, we're finally down to the potential forgiveness amount. And you're going to have 3 options here. One is you're going to take that 17,028 and multiply it by your FTE factor, so 0.87, and that gives us 14,814. And again, if we would have just brought Oli back up, this would be 17,028 instead. So that's a pretty big change in the number. So your PPP loan amount is line 9, 17,750. And then there's also this test to make sure that it's just covering about 75% of your payroll. So you divide your payroll costs, which I can't even remember, it's 13,000 some, by 0.75, and that gives me 18,371. And then your forgiveness on line 11 is what is the smallest amount. So the smallest one is 14,814. So then the remaining amount, so we're going to have about a $3,000 loan at 1% interest that we're going to have to repay in the next 2 years. So, all right, that brings us to the end. I'm going to put some links in the description part of this video. And hopefully this gave you some ideas about how you can maximize your forgiveness. Now that we know what the forgiveness rules are, we know that maybe we just need to increase our FTE, or we need to increase our pay, and that'll just maximize our forgiveness. But there's still time to do that. There's still time to make some adjustments. Hopefully this has been a blessing to you as a ministry of the Finance Office of the Dakotas Conference and the Dakotas United Methodist Foundation. And remember, you can always find more information on www.dakotasumc.org or dakotasumf.org. All right, God bless you.